Thank you very much, Augustine. Our next session will be delivered by Gabriel Seiberth, President Europe at KPIT. Please welcome him to the stage.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'll be talking about a topic which is arguably at the heart of software-defined vehicles, right? The operating system. And probably you all remember that some 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, all the OEMs started to talk about it and start to invest about it. They wanted to insource all the software development, wanted to create an own operating system. And there was also logic to it, because as you look at the tech players, which are of course the kind of the paragon for the OEMs, they all of them have an own operating system. Right? It started with Microsoft, then Google, Amazon, the Chinese, Tencent, Alibaba. They all have operating systems. And so the idea of the OEMs was we also need an operating system. And it's also kind of a question of fate in a way, right? Because there was always this tech versus OEM battle, was stylized a lot also in the press. Who will win it? Who will own the monetization of the car and all that? All that was part of this debate around the operating system. And now we have 7, 8 years later, and I think it's a good time to reflect and to look back and to see what kind of came out of it. It's not that, the topic is not that prevalent at the time right now, but I think it will come up, because there are some things that about to unfold, which will give this a completely, ideally, a completely new direction. But let's look into it. So it started with very impressive revenues. If you look at what Apple does, and of course Apple is kind of the shining example for it. Apple in 2020 is estimated to have made 18 billion out of App Store revenues. And this is the fee that they get for all the apps that are sold. And they do some 50 billion, 55 billion out of digital services. And it's estimated, they don't disclose that, but it's estimated that 18 of it is from App Store revenue. And this will grow, obviously. In 2025, it is expected to already reach 27 billion and growing. And also, you need to see that the other very big smartphone manufacturer, Samsung, they sell the most phones in the world, but they don't have this own operating system, so they don't have an app store, and they have none of these revenues. And this is why it's consistently said that Apple captures something. There are studies around, it's called profit pool capture in the headset market, and Apple consistently covers around 85% of these profit pools. Because of this approach, right, an operating system plus an app store. And of course, a very big developer ecosystem. And this ecosystem, just to mention, I think they have 37 million registered users in the App Store, the app developers. So that's huge, and the revenues are very substantial. And this was also what the OEMs thought. We need this, and there's a concept which was developed in the telecom industry around 2005. It's called control points, and it came up. A working group did that after Skype, completely out of surprise, came and disrupted the telephony market. And then this working group sat together and said there need to be some critical control points which we need to own in order to prevent something like this happening in the future. And this control point view is a very good one. It's very clever strategically to look at these control points. And from the handset example that we've seen, everyone thought it's clear. The app store is the key control point, and you only control the app store if you have the operating system. This is why it was very logical, and everyone did it. You can see all the OEMs have announced to build their own operating system. And Mark Fields, Ford CEO, said in 2016, we saw what happened to the handset market, and we determined to make sure that this doesn't happen to us. And this was the thinking and habit. So kind of a really urgent topic that everyone tried to follow. But the question is now, looking back, was this really the right thing to do? And posing the question implies that there's probably a but to it, right? So it's not that simple. And what is that not that simple? If you look at the smartphones, Apple again, let's use Apple again. Like I said, 37 million developers. And these developers generating in 2020 alone 1.1 trillion of revenues. It's really massive. And Apple by now has 2.6 million apps in the App Store. And they have, I think Apple has some 1.5 billion active users, and they only have some 17-18% market share. So with 17% market share, you can reach 1.5 billion active users. And this is where this comes from. And Apple is not only on your handset, Apple is also likely in your car. It's called Apple CarPlay. And it's there since 10 years, roughly. And the apps in the App Store, 2.6 million. The apps in the car, I think they doubled. I looked the other day, they doubled. So there's kind of dynamic picking up after 10 years. But they doubled from 20 to 43, right? And these are no specific apps that someone developed for the car. These are all apps that are tailored to meet the driver distraction requirements in the car. This is why there's so little. It is mainly about navigation and some stuff. I think one new one was that you can shop in a bakery and pay via car, whatever. This is kind of a new app, but likely not a killer app. I don't know. I don't eat that much bakery, but maybe it is. I don't want to prescribe anything, but it's not the same dynamics we can say as in the phone. So there seems to be a very big difference, even for Apple, a very big difference between a car and a phone. And this is why I also say a car is not a smartphone on wheels. So this is the wrong analogy, and it kind of led the industry astray. And this monetization problem, right? Apple monetized 18 billion from their phones, but zero from the car. This is a problem. Why is that a problem? Because to develop an operating system is a very costly enterprise. Very costly. If you assume, and this was just kind of rough numbers that I made from these spends, if you assume 4 years of development, the cost for an operating system, of course you can debate what an operating system is, what would be something around 1 billion. And if you also consider 7 years of maintenance, it's another 2 billion for maintenance. And if there's zero payback to it, obviously this is a commercial problem. And just for comparison reason, to develop a completely new car model is also around 1 billion of investment. And of course you sell then tens of thousands of cars with margins to recover. And for these operating system costs, you currently have no way to recover from. And also, you will never be able to attract developers. No car maker alone will be able to attract significant size of third-party developers which develop for their cars. Will not happen. So this is really the wrong way to do. But there's the need for an operating system, isn't it? So everyone wants to build it, so it seems to be necessary. So what to do? And maybe just one thing to note, there is no operating system in a car. It's not a phone. It's an operating system. Of course, there are operating systems, but many of them. And there will never be one operating system. It will always be a collection of very different, some specialized, some more generic, some real-time capable, some safety relevant, etc. So there will always be different OSs, but there will ideally be one middleware. And if the OEMs talk about an OS, they mean a middleware. So a layer which sits between the hardware and the application layer, and kind of decouples, like we heard before, decouples hardware from software, and of course also provides a standard, because the standard is what you need in order to reuse software, to reduce complexity, and also stand a chance to attract developers, because if they don't have a standard to develop against, they will not even start to do anything. And the question is, if you need this middleware, if you need to develop it, where's the value coming from, right? You have seen there's no existing business model. Where's the value? And at least for the incumbent OEMs, there's very, very clear value in reuse. Currently, OEMs don't reuse. They try to, but they hardly reuse. Every time a new model is developed, a new chipset is established, and all the software is written again. Every time the picture of the window lifter, every time window lifter needs to be redeveloped because the chipset changed. And of course, this is not efficient. So there needs to all these kind of components that every car needs, but no user values because it's kind of a table stake. Everyone has that. They need to be reused. And currently they are not because of the missing decoupling. And this is why, at least for the incumbent OEMs, there's a very big business case in saving these costs alone in promoting reuse. And the best way, now I come to the topic of the talk, is open source. A very interesting way, and this is why I think there will be now a new dynamic coming into the operating system discussion. A very interesting way is to use open source. Why? Because it will provide a de facto standard. Currently we have standards, we have AUTOSAR, we've seen that, but it's a spec-driven standard. It's a consortial standard. People come together and define a standard, debate about it, then decide and go on. In the future, this will likely be rather a de facto standard, which is highly interoperable, has no lock-in, and also enables a community behind it because it's a kind of a size which matters. But there's, of course, the question, is open source actually working in a car? Yes, it is. We have Android in the car, we have some Linux in the car, but an infotainment systems, is it really safe and reliable, and who will warrant it? Is there a business case behind it, etc.? And this is where currently the discussion is ongoing. And I think there's an interesting idea shaping up to divide this in three roles, this open source market. One is in the contributor ecosystem, one is a maintainer that maintains the standard, and then there are distributors that make out of the maintenance, out of the standard that the maintainer provides, make a distribution and then warrant it, make it safe, and also take the liability for it. And this is shaping up. This business model needs to be proven. It's not there yet. But I think we will see in the next month, we will see some interesting announcements there. And also look at other de facto standards, right? Every car uses Android by now. We have very successful cloud, open source Kubernetes, for example, and others. We know distributions like Red Hat for Linux. So there is a business model behind it, and if this business model is there, then there's also a chance to make it safe and reliable. And this is, I think, what the OEMs will want to do. They will want to shift all the investment away from this middleware. In the industry, it's also called underwear because everyone needs it, but nobody sees it, right? So there's no point in developing your underwear. Just take it and reuse it, and spend the money, effort, and also the very scarce development resources in developing what is really differentiating to the client. And this is the key point. And if there is no business model as it was thought in the smartphone analogy, right, to just have an app store and sell digital service through app provisions, if this is not there yet, at least, what is a model, right? So the industry is looking for a model, and the question is where to look. And I would say, don't look at the smartphone, look at what differentiates you from the smartphone. Autonomous car will generate some 4 terabyte per driving hour of data, complex data, and very diverse data. I think Apple, if you ask GDPR, right, you can ask to send them your user data, which they collect about you. I think if you do this will be something around 20 megabyte or something, right? So this is 4 terabyte against 20 megabytes. And even if you stream music an hour, it's 120 megabytes. It's a completely different ball game of data. So the value for the OEMs is not in selling apps through an app store, it's in monetizing that data. And this model needs to be developed. It's not there. Also, Apple doesn't have it, no one has it. It needs to be developed. And also there, open source software will help because you don't need to write a spec, you don't need to have a kind of procurement process started if you want to test something. You just take some fitting open source software, try it out. If it works, you build on it. If it doesn't work, you take something else. So therefore, it's very, I think, crucial to get this flexibility in the system. And we had the question of the control point. If the car and the operating system is not the crucial control point, what is it? This is the kind of $1 million question. What's the critical control point in the car? I would say, because of this, given this data volume, it's the network. Right? And all OEMs control the network. And also gateway, right? If you centralize further, this will be the gateway. So it's not the operating system and an app store, it's the network and the gateway that you need to control. And every OEM controls that. This is why Apple wanted to build a car. This is why Xiaomi is building a car, because if you don't build a car, you will never be able to reach this control point. And this control point determines the 4 terabyte of data and all probable use cases in the future, in my view. And you wonder maybe why I'm telling you all this. Also, of course, we as KPIT have not only a point of view of this, but we also invest into it. So we have a joint venture with ZF called Corix, where we want to build this open source middleware stack of the future. And with Technica, we built the network in the car, Automotive Ethernet, so the pioneer for building Automotive Ethernet. So we are very interested in this development. We want to help also the automotive industry to prevail against the tech players, find their business models, and prevail. And with this, I would conclude my presentation, but also here, if there's any question, just reach out, happy to discuss. Thank you.